is a big Vilano fifth wheel. It's a big. So we're gonna put a new roof on it. So some of the things that I already seen, like this here, this is silicone. See how it's burrowing up? That means no good. They call that an NG, a no good. It's all over here. So if you see it, once you start just put a little friction under your finger like that, see how it's just working off? That's no good. So that's got to go. We're not going to save it. I'm not going to do it. And then the membrane itself doesn't feel so bad. It really doesn't. It's just everything else. And right here, they've already put another layer on there. You can see the first layer in there, and then there's a second layer on here. You gotta put more on. Make sure it don't leak. And it leaks. So look how easy this is coming off. And it's not stuck to that. That's real slick right there. It doesn't stick to this stuff. And that's where you start getting this little breach. I mean, it seems like it's stuck, but it really isn't. And it'll just make things worse. So, but anyhow, this is all coming loose here, as you can see, with my big strong fingers. And you can probably peel it right out if I can get a better grip at it. But anyhow, that isn't the way you do it. And that's why they leak. So, and then they slobbered a whole bunch on here. It's about 1.5 inches or so this way. When we take this off, there may be some underlying, you know, the paint, usually they go right over it and some of the paint may come up, but we're going to do the best we can to make it look well. But there's no guarantee that this is going to come out looking good because our strikes aren't coming out that far. That's just crazy right there. We'll be getting rid of this insert trim. This is a cheap stuff. It just sits in there and everything gets down in that track right there. It gets on the track. I am not a fan of that. The other way you can tell when it's bad, and you can go around like windows and doors. I don't know if you can hear it. It sounds like a crackling. If there wasn't other noise behind here. Hear it? When you press on it, it sounds like it's crackling. But I'm not a fan of that. Anywho, alright. So otherwise, I mean, I haven't seen any other major damage on here, like a rip or anything like that. But nothing that, so he just wanted to put the roof on it, I'm guessing. Like you said, I didn't see anything right off the rip. Boom. Yeah. Then we're going to take the air conditioners off because those air conditioners mount right to the roof. They mount right to the roof. They don't. When you go in the side, you don't have an access panel, and you don't have what they call lower control. We got some rips in the right here. I don't know if the other one's like that either. Another rip down the other end here starting to come through. There. And then we got a little thread coming out on that one. I'm going to tape these up and cover them, you know. And I'll check the other one. What we're doing right now is setting up the scaffold so we can work. We'll be obviously taking all of this skylight out, and there's a plumbing vent and so forth. So we'll be taking all of that. Yeah. What's that? That's silicone right there that pops off. Silicone is just not a good product for roof membranes, so, you know, but they'll tell you anything just to sell it to you. There's a screw right there. That's what it seems like. What's underneath this? Nope, just a failure of the caulking. But a lot of this just, I mean, it'll seem like it sticks, and that's what causes it to breach afterwards. After a while, when these plasticizers start releasing, then the caulking comes up, see? And that's still slick. You should be able to peel it up like that. You know? Even though I have, you know, very strong fingers, it still should not come up like that. I'm hoping this is salvageable, but I mean, I would like to put another one on myself. So we'll see. Maybe we will. Depends on how good that comes up. This is just an acrylic. That's all it is. I'm not a fan of these. They're just really light. So. All right, let's go check that other on here real quick that I forgot to check. See all that caulking that they just slobber right on the backside? It's not cool. There's the other one. You want to look for this stitching right here. Make sure it's, see how it's starting to breach in the back? You gotta just look for that. Eventually, obviously, nothing lasts forever, but I like to show what we're looking at anyways. So, there's a power on it. Alright, another one right here. This is the way, I don't like the way these are like this, is because it always holds debris. And debris will start drying out. When it dries out the material. I mean, I would prefer to see this lower, but it is what it is, and I can't change the whole design of it. It's just, and there's a slim possibility I could raise this up, but if I raise this up and go, hey, we solved that problem, then you're going to have an issue underneath, because you're going to see that line under there, and, you know, where the paint don't line up right, or the decal or something. So, like I said, more than likely, we probably won't mess with it. Now, let's get some of this junk off of this roof, and we shall get to work. All right, as you can see, we've got everything all wrapped up. Nice and pretty. Protect the awnings, you protect everything. So the way this roof is a radiant barrier sheathing. That's what they call it, and they think it's gonna reflect UV light and keep the coach cooler. It doesn't. I mean, if you've got a cavity up underneath there, it can work pretty well, I guess. You know, up underneath the decking. It was just OSB that's on here. So we cut all that up, and then what we want to look for is any wires all down in here, and there are none. I went up and down both sides, there's nothing there. So the concern that we have on this isn't so much a radiant barrier. That's a good idea. It's actually thicker and better than most, but they just screwed it down, the decking down to the, obviously these trusses, which are aluminum, and there's no glue. It really needs to be glued down. It really should be. So one of the other things we're going to be looking for, and something else that I'm not really all that fond of, look how thin this insulation is. That's just 1.5. That's just 1.5 inch insulation. That's cheap. It should, you know, put heavier stuff, in my opinion. But anyhow, now what we do is we take all of this. We're going to cut these. We're going to put that back in. But what we're looking for is the joints. We want to make sure they're all tight. Make sure they're taped up well. That's what we're looking for. So we're going to remove all of this and see how good or bad, and just get out of the slick right here. I want to make sure that this is nice and tight and not compromised. You know, you can see some of the tape lifting up right there. So we'll give that another lick of tape. Okay, stuff like that. That's what we're looking for. So we're trying to get some room cleared. And then we'll see if there's anything else in here that's kind of peculiar that we may want to fix. Sometimes I run across these aluminum trusses will be broke on a few of them that I've done. But we'll just take a peek under here. Let's see what's going on with it. And then we put her back together, and we're going to glue her down and put a roof on it and be done with it. So that's just a piece of Luan behind there. Some of these companies are bragging about this, Asdel, and that if you get something behind it that you don't rot out the siding and everything. I've only seen it on the keystone in the back. You can't see this one. This may have a piece of Asdel on this side. That's what I was looking for. If I find it, I'll let you know. But even on the keystone, they only had it on the back. I think they had it on the front, but they definitely didn't have it on the sides. So, at least not on the portion that I could see. Let's get to work. Get this all glued down, and we will keep you updated on our progress. So, okay, so back to the movie. Like, so we got that there. We're taking all the insulation out just to check it. They're just kind of coming along and just double checking that stuff, like prudent measures. But they did glue every one of these down, which is pretty good. And then even the trusses, these little spot welds that they did, little rivets in there, really what it is. But there are a lot more of them than I see in some of the other ones. These ones aren't as flimsy as some of them, but I mean, I still don't like all that. But once you put it all together and glue it together, it'll work better. That's the only thing I see that so far that I haven't liked. That and the insulation being 1.5 inch on this, that should be an upgrade for sure. 3-inch insulation or so, in my opinion. But like I said, and also glue these. These need to be glued. So what happens is when you don't glue it, all that energy from racking and flexing back and forth, and that's what these do quite a bit. If you watch one go down the road, you'll see it move quite a bit. It'll waller out all these screws. All that energy's got to go somewhere. So where's it going to go? It's going to go on the screws. And on an aluminum like this, it's going to waller them out. And we want to try and keep it as tight as we can, for sure. So that's the only concern I see on it. Then on the air conditioner, though, I got to say, this is a roof mount, and a lot of times we see them just take, and when I say roof mount, meaning that it's actually bolted to the roof or screwed to the roof deck versus being up underneath with a compression type fitting. But that said, a lot of them just screw them right through the roof deck with these huge lag bolts, and then they get wallered out, and then they start to leak. But these ones on here is they took the time to actually weld in some angle brackets right here so you can still mount them down inside there. So that's pretty good. I like to see that. They did it on both of them up there. This one, there's 2 units. They already pointed out that there, the tape. And like I said, we're just gonna, and also I'm gonna vacuum this up. I don't like the mess there. I find when it's a mess, it just, sometimes things get overlooked, and at least if it's nice and clean and you can see if something don't look right. So all the wiring and everything that we've been trying to find, I just want to, like I said, they're all ran, looks like through a central point right here. Maybe some of them watching my videos because they got all that loom around all these wires, which is awesome. So from what I understand, these are built in Alabama. I don't know much about them, but was it Vilano, something like that. So other than that, we will show you what else we got when we got it coming up. Okay, so we checked everything out. So one of the things that we also vacuumed it out. Get all that out of there. So we went along every trunk line, but something else that we did through the whole thing, these wires, this is just foam. And what happens that we found on other ones is it leaves a big groove after a while when it starts rubbing on it. So we just put a little piece of aluminum on here, taped it on, and then we taped this to the aluminum so this can't bounce around the wires. Right? So we did that to all of it. Obviously set our insulation back, and then what we're going to do is cut that radiant barrier. We're just going to tuck it down inside here, each one of these, and then that'll give us a place to apply the glue so we can put on the decking. And we're going to be putting on 1/2 inch instead of 1/2 inch BC decking is what we're using instead of the 7/16 OSB that they had on here. So, all right, well, that's what we're doing so far. So we're moving along. All right, so what we're doing now is we got the decking going on. It's all been screwed and glued. That's what we're doing over here. We're gluing it down. So we got an extra piece in here because the coach is really wider than that. It's like 101 inches wide, or just almost 102, which is maximum limit. But anyhow, we're gonna these plywood only comes 8 foot, so we have to put a filler. So what we're doing is jogging it so we keep the strength to it. But you can see, I mean, we've got glue everywhere on this thing, got it all screwed down. We can do that through the aluminum trusses. If these are wood trusses, we wouldn't be able to screw it down. We would have to staple it down. So we'll get another piece in here. So here's a radiant barrier sheathing, and what we did is just cut it to fit inside the bay so we can get some glue on here so we can get everything bonded and screwed and fastened together, right? And that's what we're working on. So got all that. We're just plucking them screws in, sending them all down. We spend no expense in these screws. You want to put quite a few screws in these things. They really move, a lot. They rack, they flex, they twist, and we want to make sure it stays in place. And that's the purpose of the glue. It kind of takes the stress off of the screws as well. So, like I said, that's about us. So as soon as we get that done and everything, I got another trim piece coming over here to protect the corner, and then we got strips that'll go on the center. The buffer strips will go on the center of the brakes there. And then we get roof mounted. We have got the driver's side glued and rolled out. Passenger side already sprayed. We've got all the adhesive on there, and you can see we got our buffer strips right here. I call them buffer strips. They just kind of protect the joint a little bit. That's all it does. Kind of balance it out. And we got everything all screwed down. This is an aluminum edge that I put on here, and basically a new shoulder. So we fabricated that up, and it protects the roofing and the siding where they come together. It protects the roofing itself, the material, and it also makes it sit nice and tighter on this type. And there are different ones that we've done. Some are radius, but that's what we come up with on these. So it's ready to get rolled out. Once it gets rolled out, we're ready to get the curbs on here and get everything done. But I mean, we put a whole bunch of screws in this thing. It looks great. So we're ready to go. You see, we got everything all protected. That's the way you do a job. And I watch some of these guys up on YouTube, and I just see the sloppy work they do, and surely they got to have some complaints. I've watched them open roofs up and try to put new roofs down, and there's the opening for all the vents. There's no protection up underneath. Now, obviously, crap's going to get inside there. I mean, we've got all these pads. All this is all wrapped up inside. When you go inside, before we start on a project, we have blockers that go up, and they're shaped the same size as the little plastic garnishments that go up inside there. Same exact size, same screw pattern hole, so we can just keep the debris from going back inside there. So, you know, some of these guys bounce around on ladders. You know, we got full scaffold here. So I'm just saying this because I have a lot of people that come back from other shops and things aren't well. And just do your homework. If you're going to get someone to work on your coach, if you don't want to bring it here, do your homework. You know, if I show them virtually every camper we do, we put up and post. And we've been doing it for a few years now. At least there's like 200 and something videos on there. So you can go back quite a bit and see some of the stuff that we do. But we do that to show the customer all what we're doing, what we encountered, because that's what we get when they come back in. They go, hey, what'd you find? What'd you see? And honestly, I probably couldn't remember. Say, hey, we got it on video. We'll send you the link so you can take a look at it and watch what we did and everything. You know, did you fix this? Did you find that? So on and so forth. But also, you can see the quality of the work that we do. I'm not one of those jazzy type of YouTube channels where I got to have this fancy intro and all this music and drones and all this jazz. I mean, I'm just giving you meat and potatoes because these are too expensive to sit here and just make light of. They really are. They're expensive to do. There's a lot of work to them. So I'd rather have all my energy put into showing you all of this and what we're doing than to be worrying about editing all the other junk that isn't really necessary to help you make a proper decision, right? So, like I said, we've got it all glued out. So the next step, obviously, is to roll this out. Once we get this rolled out, then I have a heavy roller I roll on here, and I'm going to try to see if I can get up here to video it. We have just got so much work in here. It's really crazy. But this is our big roller right here. You've probably seen it on other videos, so I'm hoping that I can jump back up here, you know, when they do that. But they'll roll the whole thing and get it down nice and tight. So everything we use, by the way, this is a 60 mil commercial grade roof membrane. That's the same product you're going to find on a hospital, on a library, on a restaurant. And all the adhesive, everything, this is all commercial. Everything on the coach that we work with is all commercial. This is 1/2 inch BC grade plywood. And one of the reasons why I made this wide, if you remember, the coach is like a 102. So my other option was to get OSB. I didn't really want to put OSB on here. I feel much more comfortable with the decking than I do with, when I say decking, I mean the plywood, than I do OSB. So that being said, I still had that piece that I had to put in here, but I didn't want to see them jogged over, so I made this nice wide piece to cover it. So it's not noticeable. It'll look nice and clean. So even though we put the roofing on, the only thing you're going to see is possibly this little lip edge, you know, running down there, but it's better than seeing it all jogged over. And so that's why I made it that way. And I want the coaches to look clean and look professional as well as be watertight. So, all right, well, let us get this thing rolled out. And like I said, we'll show you as we go along, like we usually do. Show you as much as we can. All right. All right. So what we got here, this is the ladder. Focus in there. There we go. This is our ladder. So what we're doing now, see inside here, there's a little nut. And these things tend to get just loose. So what we're doing, taking them all. There's some here. These mount to the back of the. These mount to the back of the coach. So what happens is they just get really loose. So there's a nut on the back side here too. Screw. There's a nut inside here. Same with this one. Screw goes down, not inside. So what we're doing, taking it all apart, we're putting some Never Sees on here, Loctite. You're gonna Loctite it all together so we know it's nice and tight, and that's what we're doing now. You don't want to climb a ladder and then have this thing all wobbling all over the place. So that's just some of the things we do. We don't want our customers falling off their ladder trying to get a good gander at our roof. Some people just climb up on the roof to look at it all day, and we want to make sure they can get down too, you know, because we do such beautiful roofs. You know, hey, let's just go up there and look at the roof, like nice scenery, you know. And occasionally you can peek at the mountains, but then you look at the roof again, you know. So that's what we do. Get it all nice and tight. Well, we are all done with our Vilano. We got our tag up here. We want to thank these folks for bringing this coach into us. This one here was relatively straightforward, and we haven't had one of those in a long time. I don't think we found, actually, the only thing that I found on this coach, if I remember right, was the insulation just wasn't as thick as I thought it should be. Otherwise, like everything else is all intact. One of the very, very, very few coaches that we ever have to do anything to. So here's our brand on here. We get the April 22 on there. That just lets everybody know when this roof was done, how long ago it was done, and all that stuff, you know, so they can keep track of it. If these folks ever decide to sell it, don't have to worry about someone trying to talk them down and saying, hey, we need a new roof. Obviously, you can tell it's an upgraded roof, but you never know the way people are. So at least you have something to say, hey, it's still under warranty. You can see we got our stands right here in the back of the AC. And then this roof here is a 60 mil commercial grade TPO. It's a thermoplastic. So obviously, I think the last clip that I showed, we were just rolling out the roof, I believe. And I was meaning to try to show the roller, but we went over it with a roller and, you know, got it all tight and all that jazz. Like you've seen on all the other ones. We've just been so busy that sometimes it's hard for me to run back up here and get a clip when I'm working on something else. So we got a counter flash on the front. What this counter flash does is when the rain comes down, then it's going to go, there's another piece of counter flash that's on the curb. This goes below it. So when the water comes down, it'll run out. There's just a little foam gasket up inside there, and I don't want all this headwind and all this water getting blown in on a rainy day, you know, trying to irritate that foam gasket. So we just put this on here, which makes it, again, it just diverts it around, is what it does. And then the stands just give it some balance. That's all those do. Then all the curbs, they all have, these are our counter flashes right here, and the counter flashes are built into it. So now as you have the rain, as you're traveling, the rain's going to be just really coming across the roof. When it does, it's going to hit up on here and it's going to get diverted out on each side. We've got some nylon lock washers and lock nuts rather. We use them on there. We don't use the ones that come with this brand or any of them because they may just drop out. So we put them on there. This is a Wi-Fi that he wanted to put in there. All we did is drop a wire. We don't hook up anything, and we just made the base. So this is a solar fan. And what we found over the years is that the condensation that sits on top of these units, on top of the skylights here, the actual lenses, when they sit on top of there, the condensation does on a cool morning. The sun comes up, will evaporate it up, but the condensation there, the frost is just not on the top, it's up underneath too. So now as the sun comes up, it's going to evaporate what's on top, but it's not going to get underneath. So what happens is when it does warm up, it does condensate, and then it starts trickling down. These are all chronic problems, and what will happen is it'll just start weeping into, if we didn't have a curb, but it would weep into the roof deck, and a lot of times we see damage around the skylight, which is partially due to that. So I designed a fan assembly. There's a ventilation system that I designed. There's the other piece of it is over there. That's the draw, and this is the exhaust. It's a solar fan, so once the sun comes up, that kicks on. There's a flume in here, basically a trough, where it pulls the air from there, comes through, goes up over the inner lens, and then comes back down. So it pulls all that air, and it'll stay on all day. So now, that being said, if that pops off on a rainy day, water will get inside there. So what you need to do is come over here and take this one. This plumbing, if that pops off, it doesn't matter because that plumbing cap, the plumbing, the way that's designed, it'll just, if any water gets in that pipe, it'll just go right down into the holding tank. But this one here, you have to make sure that one stays on there. It's a great system, but still need to make sure the cap is on there. Again, steal this one if you have to. So everything else is all done. Went along, get a couple of strikes of caulking all along the top. And then the customer is going to go along and check everything else around there. We're going to give them some tips on how to do all that. And you can see we got a couple strikes on here as well. Everything come out nice and clean and crisp. And that's the way it should come out, nice and professional. That's the way we do our work. You saw when we were working on it, it was all covered and wrapped and everything. We put some metal bands on here that come over the shoulder. I don't know if I thought I showed that. Yeah, I did on that other previous clip. So let me just show you what we got for the roofing, and I'll show you the material. A couple of things here. It's easily, washable. You can come up here and wash it with a pressure washer. It doesn't have to be a heavy duty one. You can wash it with just some dish soap. It cleans up pretty well. Simple green. It cleans up real well. So this is the material right here. This is a 60 mil, what they call commercial grade structured membrane. And the structuring, if you look real close, you can see some of these little squares. That's a mesh that's built inside of the material. That's what gives it strength against hail, tree branches, things like that. And that, see if I can get that to show that little bit of mesh on the edge. Maybe I'll see something right here. There you go. So that's built into it, and that, again, that's what gives it all its strength. This is all weldable. Now they say some of these campers have PVC roofs and they have TPO roofs. They're not thick enough to weld. You burn right through them. They burn right through them. They're just they're not heavy enough. And that's what this is all designed for. This is all commercial. Everything we use is all commercial. Everything, every bit of it. So this is a gutter that we put. This gutter right here. This is a sample of showing you. This was the insert trim. What I don't like about this insert trim is it just sits in that track like that and just floats. And then water can get down inside the track. So the water can still get down inside that track. It'll roll over here and just get down in there. This type here, I like this better because it's got a little groove in it, and that little groove locks in. You can see how it locks in inside and outside of the gutter rail. So I like that. So now the water is forced to have to, and it's also got this little radius to it, this little bubble out, which on a water adhesion principle, when the water gets on there, it'll just flow in that manner, and instead of just trying to run down the roof. Anyhow, that's what we use this. Now this here, people ask me all the time. I think you can find this. AP Products makes one of these type of products here. The stuff that we get, we have to go through the manufacturer. So we don't sell anything either. We don't sell any roofing. We don't sell anything at all. Zero. We're not a sales place. We just don't need the added paperwork, to be honest with you, and we just don't have time to do all the packaging. So all that said, we just we don't sell anything. You can find a lot of this again. If you want to find the roofing, you can go on to your local supply house and see if you can find it. If you're a DIYer, these aren't necessarily DIY channels, or videos. See, like blurring out here. They're not DIY videos. These are videos for the customer to see all the work that we put into the coach. So keep in mind, we don't always run into nice, easy ones like this. We get quite a few coaches come in here that are just an absolute rebuild or a hot mess, and it really throws we call it a board now. We don't call it a calendar. I don't know why that's blurring out. But anyhow, just be patient with us and we can get you all fixed up. Well, we appreciate you watching. Let's see you in the next one. Let's see, we got all the coaches that come out with a care package. This is our care package right here. See if I can zoom this in. We got a license plate right here if he wants to put that on. This is a piece of patch. It's an emergency patch in case he got a tree branch to come down and if he had to patch it. Now this is a hot patch. This is the one that we would use much like this one around here. It's just the same material, but so that would have to be welded in. However, in an emergency, if you had a hole I won't say whatever, right here. If you saw it in there, you take this and shove it in that hole, and you go squirt, 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 squirt all around in a circle like that, and load it. Then you squeeze it, it'll bubble up. That's done. This is a moisture cured product. That's what we use. We use all Chemlink products. This is Durlink. That's what we use. So that'll seal it. But then we also left a couple of patches. So the way you want to do your patching, there's an roll away. The way you want to do your patching, and we left a couple in here, is you would center it over your hole. Once you get it centered, take a pen and outline this. You want to outline it with a pen. Now you got that, just set that aside. And we left, there's a little bit of primer right here. You're going to need that primer. And I might as well empty everything out of this thing. Here's a brush. So now you want to go beyond the ink line. You want to go beyond that, maybe 3/8 of an inch or so. So you're going to be doing this on your ink line. Then you want to do the whole thing here. So you got all the inside the ink line, and then about 3/8 over the ink line. You're going to take your patch. You're going to peel the back. This film will peel right off, and you line it up. And I usually reach up underneath, and then I take my other hand and I kind of pull it this way. It keeps it nice and smooth. Now you've got your ink line there. You got your primer out here. You take your brush again and go over this, just like that. Okay, go over here, because it won't bond to this. That's the purpose of the primer. Nothing's going to bond to the TPO unless it's primed. So once you get that, then you come back with your product, and you can put some caulking around there, and that's going to be a pretty darn good band-aid. Now, if the customer really feels he needs to have a hot patch put on it, that's why we left this. We don't want someone to just go to if he can't come back here, we do them for free. If he can't make it here and he's somewhere else, he's like, yeah, that really needs to be put on there, you cannot interchange these materials. So some people think you can take, this is a Carlisle membrane right here. Now Carlisle does make a couple other products, but it has to be the same Carlisle product. But you couldn't take, for instance, GAF and put it on there. You couldn't take Genflex and put it on there. You can't do that. They're two totally different companies, and they're two totally different products. I mean, they're still TPO, but it's kind of like Ford and Chevy. Yeah, they're both a car, they're both a truck, but they're not compatible. You're not swapping parts on them. So it may seem like it'll weld on there, and I've had people at supply houses tell me, oh yeah, we don't have any of that, but you can use this. You can't. There's enough chemical imbalance in each product where they're not compatible. So that's why we put that in there, just in case. So you got the primer, you got that, you got the brush, you got some caulking. And then the caulking, we like to see these come back in 30 days, okay? 30 to 60 days for an initial inspection. After that, it's annual. Now, if the customer says, well, I want to inspect it myself, we want them to go along, put a little friction on here to get it warmed up, and then this is going to stay tight anyways. But in the event he found something, hey, it looks a little loose or whatever, you can put a little bit more primer on there, and you can use that to just give it a little love, especially around the corners. You can go around the corners and everything like that if you had to. So that's why we put all that in there. Let's see, we got a magnet for maybe on your hood of your stove. Got a couple of pens here. Got a fancy dancy key tag with a beverage opener. We can't say beer, it's a beverage. So this is a checker tool. So this is used to check the joint, the welds. You go along like this, and if it pops in there and you find a little hole, we'll say there was a tiny bit, if you did, well, that's what you check for. It needs to kind of move a little bit. So if you did, then again, you can take the primer, take a little brush, put it all in there, take the caulking, and you're done. Okay, that'll hold it till we can get a look at it and make sure everything's all set. But like I said, that's what we like to see. It come back in about 30 days. I like to see them, but 60, all right. But I still want them inspected because I don't want to have a little tiny problem turn into a big problem and then an upset customer. So we got all of that there, and let's see what else we got here. Here is a sample of our product. This is a 60 mil commercial grade. And if you look real hard enough, you could probably see see if I get the angle of this light in here from the shop. You can see these little squares. There's a mesh built into this, which gives it its strength. So that's where it'll resist hail damage. It'll resist tree branches. So it's really hard to poke through this. It truly is. You'd have to have something really hard and sharp to really get it. But if you had a big enough tree branch, that could possibly happen. So we got all that, and then like I said, got another key tag and everything in here. So that's the gist of it. So all the customers, they get these here, and we got an emblem on the back. There's one of our emblems here that we put on the back, and that's about it. So we leave all this with the customer. So Mr. and Mrs. Customer, you know, at least they have all this stuff handy in case of an emergency. So we want to make sure everything stays tight and everything, you got all the products you need, so on. So obviously if you have any issues, there's a telephone number, 423-475-7663. Keeping all this in mind, these are not intended for DIY. I just simply don't have the time to answer all these DIY questions. And the other thing is, I don't know what you're dealing with. I don't know what you have. I don't know what products are on there. And I have guys ask me all the time, what can I use for this? What can I use for that? And I don't want to steer anybody in the wrong direction and find out, okay, well, you got silicone on your windows. What can I use to do my windows? Well, you're going to have to dig all that out. You have to dig it all out. Nothing sticks to silicone. Silicone doesn't stick to silicone. So you really got to clean all that out. And if you don't know if you have silicone, and some people don't know the difference, they can't just go up there and feel it and go, yeah, that's silicone, or it's just a urethane, or it's a terpolymer. I mean, there's a bunch of different products out in the market now. But the biggest one is being the silicone. And some products kind of simulate in a touch, so you may think it's silicone, but all that has to be, like I said, it has to be removed. But again, that's why I try not to get into advising, and I just don't want anybody to be upset, but honestly, I really don't have the time at the risk of sounding like a jerk. I'm not trying to be. I'm trying to do a good job, but you can imagine how many emails and, you know, we get from, you know, with questions, and also questions on our channel. Keeping this in mind as well, we don't quote on social media. If you want a quote on yours, you'd have to give us a call. Again, 423-475-7663. You can do that, and then you can send us an email even if you wanted to at contactus@rvroofinstall.com. So that's about it. Everything's done. I think the customer just showed up, so we're going to get him coupled up here, and he may want to take a glance at the roof, and otherwise we're good to go. So we appreciate y'all watching. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. What that does, from what I understand from the algorithms, what it does is if somebody's looking for information on RV roofs, then, you know, this video or other videos will pop up. That's what I'm guessing. So if you want to subscribe, well, we put these up pretty often. You can go through a lot of the other videos we have. Some, I'm trying to think of some really good ones that we did that were just a hot mess. There's a Georgetown we did, I think a couple years ago. That Georgetown, we did the whole ceiling, took the whole ceiling and roof out and rebuilt that whole entire thing. There's a Montana that's up there. There's a, earlier from years ago, maybe 5 years ago, there is a Siesta. And you can, that was roof we did, and the guy who did that roof put 2 roofs on, put the first one on, messed it up, put the second one on, messed it up, and you'll see that hot mess they did. They did not know what they're doing. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of guys out here on YouTube that'll say, hey, yeah, you can do this, you can do that. There's a couple of so-called experts that are out there, and I watched one of their videos, or a few of them, and I just shake my head because I know things are going to leak, and I know some of the stuff they've done, they have to have leaked, because there's just no way things go together like that. So if they're not, I don't think they mention that, but on their video, I haven't seen mention, hey, yeah, we had a leak, we had to fix it. But you know, if we have any issues, obviously we want the customer to come back immediately, and let's stifle any leaks at all. But you know, that's like almost unheard of. And I'll be honest with you, some of the biggest problems we've had are with these skylights, with them fracturing, and that's why we do them differently. Some of these ones, like I said, they're manufacturer's defects on a lot of them. But that being said, especially if you had a cambered roof, if you had a roof that had just a little bit of a camber, that wants to lay down flat, like just a flat piece of glass. And if you just make this end tighter and that a little tighter, now it's got that little stress going on it, and it only needs a little bit of stress to crack it. So that's one reason why we don't put any screws on anymore. So, and if they come back for inspection, we take all the screws out, and then what we'll do is just load them, because the product that we use underneath there, it's not coming up. It won't come up. If you have to replace that, you're going to have to rip up that whole entire lens, and you're going to have to. It's not coming up. So, well, anyhow, like I said, I appreciate y'all watching, and we'll see you on the next one.